Yo, Kid Guy here, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm bringing you an idea of a video that I can't take full credit for. Glenn Abdo, in the comment section of my AVM 70 1 year later video that I made last week, he said that he was looking into Anthem products. I think he said he was looking at Anthem products and was kind of deterred from some of that stuff because there's a lot in the menu section and sometimes it's hard to kind of go through. I think he may have an AVM product or an Anthem product and there's so much in the menus and stuff that it could be overwhelming. So it inspired me to make this video because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who have questions on their receiver menus in general. I'm going to be using the Anthem AVM 70 preprocessor as my demonstration, but everything we go through here, a lot of it will pertain to your receiver. Marantz, Denon, Pioneer, Onkyo, a lot of receivers and preprocessors use some of the same things with a different name behind them. So we're going to go through my menus and kind of show you guys what all they mean and what they do. A lot of it will correlate to your products, so maybe we can learn something together. So let me point you guys towards the AVM. We'll go through some of the menus and talk about what they mean. All right, so here we are in the AVM 70, the settings here, the menu. So like I said, a lot of this will be kind of similar to what you guys have in your AVMs or in your preprocessors or receivers of choice. So we're gonna kind of go through these. I'm not gonna go too in-depth because the video can get very long, but I'm gonna go through some of the things that are most common in most receivers and preprocessors. So let's start off with speaker setup. Everybody has a speaker setup of some sort. So I'm gonna select mine here and I'm gonna select my profile for profile 1. So you're going to see things like subwoofer, all your speakers will be listed here. And what this is showing you is what speakers are in use, right? So profile name, I can set 5 or 6 different, maybe even more different profiles on my AVM. So if I can have different kind of profiles for whatever situation I'm in, movies, music, games, whatever. And then underneath that shows us all the speakers that I'm using within that profile. So I only have one profile. I use the same profile for everything. So it shows what subwoofer I'm using, what speakers I'm using, and what speakers that I'm not. So you can see that the speakers that I am using are on and the speakers that I'm not using are off. So pretty self-explanatory. I do have 2 subwoofers, so I have it to 2. This is this menu where you can change it's called speaker selection basically, where you can go in and choose what speakers you want to use that are active, and you can turn off the ones that are not, so that you can set up how you want to set up your configuration. So mine is a 7.2.4, meaning 7 speakers on the floor, 2 subwoofers, and 4 Dolby Atmos speakers over my head. If we go back, 3D sound allows me to configure my height speakers or my Dolby Atmos speakers. So I have 2 on the front wall, and then I have 2 on the ceiling above my head. So that's just your speaker selection there. Bass management for profile 1, this is where you set your crossovers for everything. Most likely in your receiver or preprocessor, it probably says speaker configuration, and then you can go to crossovers. Here is where I can set my crossovers for absolutely everything. So LFE, low pass filter, how do I want to set my crossover for the LFE section of my movies, right? So 120 hertz is what's recommended. And then my phase frequency, which is I'm not going to get into, that's a whole different video, but I can set my subwoofer phase frequencies and my polarity here. So on the back of your subs, you have usually a 0 to 180 degree switch or a 0 to 180 dial that you can change. And that's your subwoofer's polarity or phase, depending on what you have. And so I usually leave mine on normal, unless I have 2 or more subs, then you kind of want to play with it. So that's how you set your phase and frequencies there, but this is your crossover. So you can see my crossover, 80 hertz on some things, center channel 80 hertz, blah, 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 right? So this is what Anthem has chose for me. I haven't changed it yet, but this is the crossover menus. So super sub fronts. Super sub fronts means that you can play your speakers full range, so you're getting the full range of frequencies to it. So it plays what the subwoofer plays basically. I have that off because you don't really want any of your main speakers to be playing any kind of sub frequencies. It's pretty dangerous to do that. But this is like setting your speakers to large essentially. I don't do that on any of my speakers, so I have them all set to a crossover in this menu here. If we go to the listener position, this is where I can set my distances. This is most commonly called just distances in your receiver. This is where you set how far your speakers are from you, where you sit, not from each other, but from where you sit. And how you measure this, usually your receiver will do it for you, but my Anthem does not, which is okay for me, so I can actually put it to where I want it to be set, right? So you measure from the tweeter of the speaker to ear level on the couch or chair where you'll be sitting. That's how you measure your distance. If you're using wireless transmitters, do not set your distances for that. Let the receiver choose, because it's making up for some delay. But typically you want to take the tweeter of your speaker and measure from the tweeter to your ear where you usually sit when you're watching movies and listening to music. That's how you set your distances there. So all my distances are set. You can see my subwoofers and stuff are set to 30 feet, even though my apartment is no bigger than 23 feet, because I have a wireless transmitter on one of them. So I have to account for some delay there. But this is the menu for all of your distances. Now, if we move down to level calibration, this is more likely called, I missed it. Level calibration is most likely called just levels, speaker volumes. This is where you set all of your levels for all of your speakers here. This allows you to kind of make sure that all your speakers are playing at the same volume from where you're sitting, if that makes any sense. So you can see all of my speakers don't have the same decibel level, dB, right? +1 on one subwoofer and -2.5 on another subwoofer. Front left is 1.5 and front right is 2. You're probably wondering, well, why are some of your speakers louder than others? Well, that's because some of my speakers are farther away than others. So to reach my ear at the same time, at the same volume, you have to adjust your levels to make sure that it sounds natural, basically, right? So this is the menu where you go and set all of your levels. Now, calibration in your system will do all that for you. But if you want to bump something up, this is where you want to come to. Like, for example, I always turn my center channel up just a few dBs more than everything else, because I want to be able to hear it over everything else. Also, I do the same thing for my front speakers and my front height speakers, my Dolby Atmos speakers. I turn all those up a little bit too, because I want them to be heard over everything else as well, since they're so much higher and farther away than everything else. If we move down to input setup, this is most likely called input in your system as well. This is where you can name all of your HDMI inputs. So for me, I have a Fire Stick, a Blu-ray, and a Super Box, which is like a TV box, all hooked up to my AVM, and that's all that I have. So I named them that because it's much easier to go through the menus and know what you are looking for. So if I exit out of here and I go to my inputs, I now have it named Fire Stick, Blu-ray, and Super Box. So I know what input matches with what. Super easy to find, right? So that's super easy to do. And even when you click on them, you can do more to them. You can set what audio and what video you want to come out to. So HDMI 1 is Fire Stick, so my video input is a Fire Stick, but I can change what audio I want to use here. So let's say I'm watching I have my Fire Stick on, I have maybe a fireplace little theme going on, right? It's winter time, we're drinking hot chocolate with the family, so I put on a fireplace on YouTube as my, as my background, right? But I want to have a different audio source than what I see on my Fire Stick. Well, you can come here and change on audio input. You can change what audio is coming through even if you're on a different input. So if I have HDMI 1, but I want to have audio from HDMI 2, I can come to audio and select HDMI 2 and have that come through even though I'm watching HDMI 1. So that's really nice to have here. And particularly, I can change what I want to do as far as if I want Anthem room correction to be applied to this certain input, if I want a rumble filter, whatever I want to do, I can kind of fine tune it there. But this is where you're going to set the names of your inputs and kind of how you want to configure them. You can also turn inputs on or off if you aren't using HDMI 5 or 6 or 7. Maybe you don't want to have that in your menu, so you can change that there. Super cool, right? Preferences here is most likely called options or other in your settings. This is where you can change your language, change if you want your distances to be set in feet or in meters, if you want updates to be on automatically or not. It's really self-explanatory. Mine in particular has the brightness of the screen. If it turns off after 15 minutes of inactivity, this is kind of where you can fine tune how your system manages things here. If you mute the volume, do you want it to mute completely or do you want it to mute half volume? How do you want that to be configured? What volume do you want your system to turn on to by default? I have mine to be turned on at -45 dB, but if you want it louder, you can have it to be turned on at 25 dB. This is really handy because maybe you were listening to a movie or watching a movie with the family and you had it blasting at like negative 10 dB and you turn it off, right? But you don't want to be at negative 10 dB when you turn it on again. So you want it to be at a lower volume. You can have it always turn on at a certain volume just to make sure that it's never too loud. So this is really nice. And this is also where you can handle some of your zone 2s and zone 1s. If you have a preprocessor or a capable receiver, you can have your zone 2s and zone 1s configured here. What volume do you want? What input do you want? All that good stuff. So this is pretty straightforward as well. Now, if I go back, my network control, this is most likely just called network for you guys. This allows you guys, of course, to set up all of your Wi-Fi connections, maybe even Bluetooth here. And this is awesome where you check for updates. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this one here so you guys can see kind of where I am as far as my Wi-Fi, make sure that I'm connected and all that good stuff. I'll probably blur this all out just in case this is important to me and not to you. So, but this is where you can kind of go in and see how your Wi-Fi status is going. Typically in your receiver, this may be where you do your updates as well. Mine is a separate tab where I can check for different updates and see if it's time to update my software. Maybe there's a firmware update coming in that I need to get done. I need to update my software to do that. That's where I do that, of course. And then lastly is your system info. This is probably called the same thing or just info in your menus here. This just tells you what version you are currently in so you can make sure that you don't have an update, and you can see particularly on the AVM 70 when your last update was and when this particular receiver or AVM processor was built. Mine was built and released on October 6, 2021. So or at least the version was, the version of the build date that I'm on here. So the network, all that good stuff, all the versions of everything that I'm running is all here. So I can make sure that I am up to date with all of the latest updates of the AVM 70 or whatever you may have. And then of course my serial number is all there. So the menus aren't too hard to get through. That's all that I have on mine. Yours are probably really similar to mine. So it makes it really, really simple and easy to use, guys. So go into your settings and see if there's things that you haven't taken a look at, because you may find some of that stuff to be very, very beneficial. Changing a few things here and there can make a huge difference for your audio and visual performance. So go back in and check that. There's somebody out there on YouTube or forums or Google who knows the answer to your questions. So don't be afraid to ask them. Leave me some comments down below. And let me know if you guys have any questions on anything Anthem related, Marantz related. I had Pioneers. I've had a few Onkios, but not the newer ones, but I'm probably knowledgeable enough to help you. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Even if I don't know the answer, there's somebody on my channel who does. So definitely leave your questions down below. Leave your comments as well. Hit that like button and subscribe if you are not already. We will see you guys in the next video. KPS Guy out. Peace.